you don't have to have a near-death accident. You don't have to have a rock bottom moment in order to change. Like, you can ask yourself right now the same question I asked myself: why am I still here? Because life is a gift. Like, you didn't have to wake up today, but you did. And you're listening to this podcast for a reason. You can ask yourself, why am I still here? And when you can really realize it's bigger than what you're thinking. It's not just to go through the motions of life and day to day. Why are you still here? And you have a purpose for your life.
Welcome to ChiroX, where we talk business growth for, chiropractors. Why am I still here? This is the foundational question that transformed today's guest from successful chiropractor to thriving entrepreneur. Today, we're with Dr. Justin Moseley, who co-founded a 7-figure practice with his wife and now has his own podcast show called The Mindset Doctor. He's here to share how he built a 7 practice driven not by luck, but a deep sense of purpose. We'll dive into his mindset shift that allowed him to build a phenomenal personal brand, master communication, and ultimately turn his influence into income. This episode actually isn't just about business, it's a masterclass on living and leading with purpose. Let's get started. The title of the show is going to give people a nice little hook bait in regards to your near-death experience. So I think I would be remiss not to at least start this conversation with at least some version of what happened. Because I'm assuming that people listening to the show don't know your backstory as well as I do. And so maybe let's start there and share a little bit about what happened. Like, what was this experience like for you?
Yeah, I'll give a quick backstory. So I'm a chiropractor. My wife's a chiropractor as well. We started our practice outside of Nashville, Tennessee here in 2012 and built a great family practice. Fast forward to 2018, I went on a men's retreat and we went whitewater rafting and we hit some class 5 rapids. And it was just a freak accident. I was sitting on the back of the raft and the raft tipped over and I got trapped underneath the rapid itself. And it started pushing me underwater. And I still remember the sound of my helmet scraping down the rocks as I was being pushed under. And the last thing I remember is I'm not coming back up. And it went black and then everything went bright white. And it was the most peaceful, serene feeling I'd ever felt. And I just lost consciousness. I don't know how long it lasted, but I heard a voice that said, "Wake up." And thankfully I did, because I came back to consciousness and I was trapped underwater, wedged between 2 rocks. And I tried to push and I didn't budge. And I kept pushing and pushing and nothing was happening. And then finally my adrenaline kicked in. And you may have heard stories of like a woman that could lift up a car to save a kid that's trapped underneath it. Like, it was this crazy strength. I was able to push hard enough. I broke a buckle on my life jacket that was trapped underneath one of the rocks, floated to the top, gasped for breath, got swept down the river. And man, at that point I was rocked. Like, what just happened? And we all question our purpose in life at some point. Like, why are we here? Like, what is the purpose of this? But in that moment, I asked a different question. I said, why am I still here? Because things could have been different in that moment. Like, what if I didn't hear wake up? Or what if I wasn't strong enough to break free? So like, why am I still here? And one of the big lessons I got from that is I knew that God has called me to help people. And obviously I was doing that locally in our clinic, but I was playing way too small. And I was like, if I truly want to step into the calling that's on my life, I need to exchange my comfort for my calling. Because I got comfortable in life. Life was good, practice was good, money was good, wife traveling, doing the things. Like, life was good, but I'd gotten comfortable. So if I truly want to step in that calling, I need to exchange my comfort for my calling. And that's when I kind of stepped out of my comfort zone and started speaking, putting out content, trying to help people, kind of doing that thing. But that's kind of the backstory of where that started. And I kind of started speaking on that. I didn't set out to be a speaker. Like, I really was like you do. I just want to interview cool people, have cool conversations and see where it goes. And at first, I don't know if you've ever felt this. I was like, I don't know if anybody's going to listen. I'm just going to show up and see what happens. And I remember in 2020, at the January 2020, I started a Facebook group. And I was like, I don't know if anybody's going to show up, but I just showed up every week, put out content, and I interviewed a person live on Facebook in the group. And it grew to 1,000 people in the first month. So I was like, all right, that's cool. People are here and they're listening. And it just kept growing. And that led to me leading mastermind retreats and coaching and speaking and doing all the things. But it was really because I just had the heart to serve people. I was like, what am I passionate about? I love mindset, leadership, personal development, business, marketing. And I just started putting that stuff out there and people resonated with it. So that's kind of the backstory of how I got to where I am today. Now it's led to 2 TED Talks. Did a TEDx talk last year that's it's probably about to cross over 750,000. So getting close to the million mark here soon. So it's been a crazy ride. It's opened a lot of opportunities, but all stem back from that near-death accident.
I'm gonna send you a giant $1 million donut with a little sparkler in it for you when you get over 1 million views on that video.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely going to celebrate for sure.
I'm curious as to what the mind shift or change was that happened for you specifically when that light or near death experience happened. Because like I've always kind of said that I think there's really two ways that people change. Is generally you have something like you had where like something traumatic, I guess you could say, whether it's a doctor telling you that you have some terminal illness, or you lose a family member, or you're in a car accident, or you have this whitewater rafting experience. Or I think there's the other where it's like just small micro baby steps and you stack on top of those wins and you eventually find yourself in a completely different place than you ever expected just because you're riding the momentum. I call it Big Mo, of like when you make like people think that decisions are individual of themselves, but I think that they stack on top of each other and they go both directions. Is if you make one bad decision, you're likely to make another bad decision, and vice versa. It goes the other way. I'm curious for you though, is like, what was the mindset prior to that? And like, how did things shift or evolve into a different framing, I guess you could say, after that experience? And then also then how did that play into your business as well?
Yeah, and I think, like you said, a lot of times it is a rock bottom moment, whether it is a car accident, the health diagnosis, which unfortunately there is a study, I can't remember the exact numbers, but they talked about people that had the Widowmaker heart attack and survived it. Like they should have died from that heart attack, and the doctor tells them, hey, you need to change your lifestyle or you're going to go back and you're going to have another heart attack. It's a very high percentage of those people don't change their lifestyle. Like that's not even enough to make them change. But for a lot of people, it is. It's a near-death accident. It's a loss of a loved one. They start to contemplate and think through things. Or, which I learned from Tony Robbins years ago, it's like change doesn't happen. It doesn't have to take time. Change can happen in an instant, like the moment you decide. And I think, yes, it was that moment, the near-death accident, but that's what made me decide to do something different. Because I wasn't aware that I had gotten comfortable. I wasn't aware that I was just kind of going through the motions of life. And yeah, I had goals and doing the things, but I really wasn't setting big enough goals. And I think that's what it was for me. It was like that was a wake-up call. And it's been my message. I went and spoke on this. My first TED Talk was about the lessons I learned from my near-death accident. And a big theme for that was you don't have to have a near-death accident. You don't have to have a rock bottom moment in order to change. Like you can ask yourself right now the same question I asked myself: why am I still here? Because life is a gift. Like you didn't have to wake up today, but you did. And you're listening to this podcast for a reason. You can ask yourself, why am I still here? And when you can really realize it's bigger than what you're thinking. It's not just to go through the motions of life and day to day. Why are you still here? And you have a purpose for your life. And for me, I just had to make that purpose bigger. Yes, I was making an impact in our clinic, but I wanted to go bigger. And I think it took the near-death accident for me as a wake-up call to be aware that I could go bigger.
I know you recently had Dan Martell on the show, and I actually remember learning from him recently that your vision for the future needs to be big enough to fit other people inside of it. And for me, that was like a transformative shift as to how I try to envision what my life could look like. Because I feel like for most of my life, especially being, young male, whatever, is most of it was revolved around like what kind of things I wanted to build or things I wanted to accomplish or the business I wanted to have or the relationship I wanted to have and then I had that shift of like, wait a minute, I need a vision that's far bigger than just me. And that is both from a family standpoint, from a monetary standpoint, from having a ranch in Texas with enough land to, put my friends and family and maybe my parents want to live there, who knows? But like just having a vision so much bigger than myself. And it took me a long time to get to that place. And like, hopefully anyone listening to this is they don't have to have a Whitewater Rapids drowning experience to be able to have that transformation. But sometimes that's what it takes, man.
Yeah, and you do have to have the bigger vision. And I've got the Buy Back Your Time book behind me on the shelf. That's the signed copy that Dan gave me. And I love that he talks about that. And another one that I loved from Dan was the person you are today is not the person that's going to hit your goals. Because if you were already that person, you would have already achieved it. So you have to have big enough goals, and then you have to change. You have to become the person worthy of achieving those goals. So that's one thing. And then going back to practice, I think a lot of people build the vision of their practice around them. And it was back in the day, it was me and my wife, the Justin and Courtney show. Like we had a great practice and people loved us, but we were the bottleneck. We could only go so far with that type of vision. So when I had the experience, near-death accident, that's when it changed. We're like, no, we want to build a bigger vision. We have multiple doctors and people will just continue to flood our office, but it doesn't have to be me. And that opened the opportunity for me. Like last year, I did 42 speaking engagements. I was traveling all the time, all over, but the practice was still thriving without me because we built the vision that didn't have to be me day to day laying my hands on people in order to make an impact. And I think a lot of chiropractors can open their vision to that. You don't have to be on the speaking circuit or do any of that, but you open your mind. It doesn't have to be about you. Bring the other people in the team, from your CAs, your front desk, to other associates, and build a vision that everyone wants to be a part of. Too many people build a vision of, I'm going to get an associate in and they're going to be a slave in my practice and just do the grunt work. Like, no, build a vision for your associate where they can grow and thrive and be happy within your clinic. That's what it's all about. But it starts, like you said, with the vision.
Can we get a little tactical on that for a moment? I'd like to linger on this topic because, so let's say the listener is like, obviously we're talking to chiropractic business owners and they're thinking to themselves, okay, yeah, like I think what Justin and Corey are saying, it makes sense. Like I need to know that I need to have a vision that's bigger than myself. And ultimately I would love to have something like that. I think that if, as we're talking about it, the listener's probably thinking like, yeah, like that sounds amazing. I would love to be able to have a practice of, really good coworkers and an awesome team and amazing patients and things are thriving and we have good cash flow and we have all these things and I have this vision and maybe they take the time to sit down and do it. But how do they actually do it, right? Is like, I think, yes, it's only created possible by having the initial vision because it starts with vision and it turns into belief and then it turns into reality. But then how did you actually do it? Because like you and your wife were literally able to do it from that point. Like, so my question is like, how did you do it?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the very basic. It's what I teach in a lot of my keynotes is you got to answer these two questions first. What do I want? So you got to set that vision like you were saying, but most people they take the time to do that. When I ask people, I was coaching a lot of chiropractors at one point, and I'd ask them, what do you want? They wouldn't tell me. They would tell me all the things they don't want. Well, I don't want to work these hours. I don't want to have patients like this. I don't want this. I don't want that. But they couldn't get a clear vision of what they actually want. So that's step one. What do you want? And then the most important question after that is, who do I need to become in order to achieve that? And I think that's a lot of self-awareness work you've got to do and be like, okay, if I truly want that, who do I need to become? I need to become the leader that can actually run that vision. So that's what I did first, was looking at, okay, what do I want? Got very clear there. And then who do I need to become? And I worked every day to do that, to become the leader who doesn't take advantage of their employees and just tries to like, okay, what are your KPIs? Are you hitting your numbers? Like, no, like how do I truly build a place people want to be and they want to thrive? So technically, that's the first thing I had to do was get the vision, write it out. And then secondly, who do I need to become? And then thirdly, it's visualizing every single day. Visualization has been a huge key. I'll call it success. Success is relative, but everything that I do, I love visualization. There's a couple of studies I love. They did one, the Ohio State University took basketball players and they wanted to test their free throw shooting ability. Group one, they said, I want you to shoot free throws every single day for 30 days. Group two, you're not going to touch a basketball. Group three, you're not going to touch a basketball, but you're going to visualize shooting a basketball every single day. You're going to mentally rehearse it. And not just like on a movie screen. Like you got to feel it with your emotions. You got to feel what it feels like to hold the weight of the ball in your hand. Hear the sound as you're dribbling it. It's all in your mind. You're vividly rehearsing it. And then what does it feel like to shoot it, to follow through, to see the ball going in the air, hear it going through the net? And you just visualize it going in over and over for 30 days. At the end of that study, group one that shot every single day got 24% better. The group that didn't shoot, didn't get any better. But group three didn't touch a basketball, but vividly imagined it every single day, got 23% better. Only 1% different than the people that shot every single day. That's the power of your mind. Your mind can't tell the difference between something that's real versus something that's vividly imagined. So for me, I look at my first TED Talk. When I was vividly, before I even got the call that I could be a TEDx speaker, it was a bucket list thing at one point, but I started visualizing myself being on that red circle. I had a visualization every night before I went to bed. I could feel the heat of the lights on me. I could hear the echo of the microphone throughout the room. I had this rehearsal over and over. I was looking out at the crowd. I could see them nodding as I was speaking. And the cool thing is, when I was my first TED talk, I was on that stage. It happened exactly the way I imagined it. From the buzz of the microphone, the heat of the lights, I looked out at people, they were nodding as I was speaking. It just became real. So another cool study, that's a quick one, was they took people that couldn't play piano. They taught them one-handed piano exercises. Group one, play every single day. Group two, vividly imagine, don't touch a piano. But with them, they actually did functional MRIs of their brain. And the exact same parts of their brain were firing, whether they were physically playing or just vividly imagining it. At the end of that study, both groups got the exact same proficiency in being able to play piano. So that's what's cool. That's the power of visualization. If it can do that to help you shoot a ball or play the piano, imagine what it can do in your own life to become a better leader, to become a better speaker, to learn a new skill, whatever it is. You can become the person in your mind first. A lot of people ask me that question, like, when did you become a speaker? I became a speaker in my mind long before I ever stepped on a stage. It was that power of visualization that gave me the confidence to overcome my fear of public speaking in the first place, to be able to get out there.
This might sound like a weird tie over, but I almost contributed to almost like brainwashing.
Yeah, no.
It's one of those things where it's one of the reasons that I'm obsessively particular over things like not watching the news, not consuming certain content, never watching porn, of course, things of that nature, is because what you consume is really becomes your reality, right? And I think this visualization that you're talking about is the exact same concept, is that whether it's the actual literal consumption of the media that you're consuming, the people that you're talking to, the engagements that are happening, or the visual things you're consuming, what you're rehearsing in your brain, the thoughts that you're ruminating, the neural pathways that you're strengthening, is like, I feel like that's really what you're talking about. Because I think oftentimes people hear the visualization and the manifestation and they think like woo woo, but really it's like, when you break it down to like a scientific level, it's just it's more or less just like wiring the correct pathways to be able to take something that isn't quite a reality yet and turn it into a reality. I don't know if that makes sense or not. But
no, absolutely. Because a lot of this stuff used to be woo-woo and out there and all the things, but then now science has caught up to it. And I study a lot of Joe Dispenza's work. I did his advanced retreat, week-long retreat, which was amazing. But really understanding the science of what happens when you meditate and when you visualize. And again, it's not just visualizing and trying to think positive. It's actually feeling yourself in the moment. Like, and again, I'm a product of this. Like, I had a tremendous fear of public speaking growing up. I was afraid to speak just to one person, let alone a room of people. And now I just did a viral TED talk that's talking about how I overcame my fear of public speaking. Like, if you would have told me years ago, one day you're going to be standing on that stage, I would have said there's no way. But I mentally rehearsed it enough where I believed I had the confidence to actually get up there and do it. So it completely changed everything for me. But it is brainwashed. We're always brainwashed. The stuff we put in, our outside world is a product of our inside world. So whatever is coming in, it becomes part of us, and that's what comes out. So we'd have to change the input if we want better output. So yes, protecting yourself from the negative. Like, a lot of people know that. I don't watch the news because it's so negative, it gets inside me. Or the old adage, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Like, who are you hanging around with? You start thinking like they do. You start having goals like they do. Are you around the right people that can actually encourage you and inspire you to think bigger and to actually encourage you to become better? So you got to be around the right people, but then that's where you can actually take advantage of it on your own. What if I planted my own seeds? Unfortunately, we're planting the seeds of doubt. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I can't do this. His podcast is bigger than mine. He got this guest, like all the things that other people. No, what if we used it to our advantage? We started planting the right seeds. Like, if I let all the voices are always there. We all have the negative voices in our heads. You have to speak louder than those voices in your head. I years ago, I never thought I would have had Dan Martell on my podcast, but I over time became the person who had Dan Martell on the show. Like, that's just one of those things. It's who you become along the way. And it's not about the goals themselves. Like in anything, it's not about the goal. It's about who you become along the way.
one of my favorite quotes is that we all have two voices in our head. We have the sheep and the wolf, and the one that speaks the loudest is the one that you feed the most. And I think a lot about that in terms of like, which voice are you feeding, right? Because some people call it the angel, the devil, or whatever you want to call it, but they're both talking to you. One of them's like, you could do it. And the other one's like, there's no effing way you could do it. And it's whichever one you listen to and you feed the most is the one that's going to grow the strongest. And it takes time, right? Like you said, you were visualizing for probably months, if not years, before leading up to that actual TED Talk, before you really were able to be there and feel it and have that experience. I'm curious for you then, though, to dive a little bit deeper into how you were able to grow that practice after you got the vision and you learned how to become the person, or you figured out the person that you needed to become. I'm curious for you personally is, what did you experience? Like the things that you needed to overcome? Like what was the person that you needed to become to be able to make that 7-figure practice? And also I'm curious is like maybe even like talking to other chiropractic business owners, or maybe with coaching with other people, is like, what are the pitfalls that they often deal with, or what is the role they're not stepping into as business owners, I guess you could say, that they need to in order to reach that milestone that they seek?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest skills that everyone needs to master is the art of speaking, the art of communication. And for me, that's something I struggled with. And I still remember back before we opened our practice, like I knew, like if I truly wanted to make an impact, like doctors that are doing really big things, they're doing workshops, they're doing dinner with the doc, they're educating on a bigger level so they can reach more people. So I still remember to this day, I had this hill that I used to walk up every single day, and I'm visualizing myself speaking. And I had this affirmation that I was doing. I said, I'm a strong, powerful, confident speaker. When I speak, people listen. When I lead, people follow. And I would say that over and over because I wanted to be a true leader that could influence people when I speak. And for me, and this is where affirmations don't work for people. A lot of people say, oh, they don't work for me. Because a lot of times people think affirmations, they just Google like these top positive phrases that they need to say over and over, but they don't mean anything to them. The true way to get an affirmation to help, we call it positive brainwashing, as we were talking about, is you have to feel the emotion behind it. So when I would say that I'm a strong, powerful, confident speaker, like I would start to feel differently. I would feel confident. When I say when I speak, people listen, and when I lead, people follow. I could already see in my mind, like, yes, I was doing a talk and then people were signing up after and becoming amazing patients. So for me, it changed the feeling, and that's what it's all about. Tony Robbins is big on this. He's talking about state. If you change your state, you can change your life. So if you put yourself in a state that's confident and powerful, and that's what those affirmations and the visualizations did for me. So starting there, like that's what I would do every day. I would condition myself to be in that peak state, but then I knew I needed to learn to communicate. So that really opened doors. Like I gained the confidence through that, and then started speaking, and then just started going there, dinner with the docs, workshops. And I'll tell real stories too, because a lot of people, you hear the highlights. Oh, I did this dinner with the doc and 30 people signed up. Well, I did a talk for teachers, and there was one talk, had a 10-minute talk, 23 people signed up. Awesome. But I also had a talk for teachers where I took them breakfast and showed up. I've been communicating with the principal, and I get there with the breakfast, and she was like, oh, I forgot to tell anybody. And then she just randomly makes an announcement, hey, come to the teacher's lounge. They didn't know what's going on. I got breakfast for them, whatever. And the principal's like, okay, you can do your little spiel. And she gave me like 7 minutes. And the teachers were all just talking together. And nobody was listening. And this one group of teachers had their back to me, and I just kind of stared at them. And somebody else was like, no, you can go. And I was like, no, I'll wait. And then finally they realized how disrespectful they were being, and they got quiet. But it was such an awkward thing in the room. Like nobody signed up for that. So there's times like, don't compare your success to other people's success. A lot of times we see other people's highlight reel. We see the time that they crushed a talk. We see the time that this thing went well and these people signed up. We see the highlights, but we compare that to our lowlights. We compare that to the time we spoke and nobody signed up, or the time that patients quit care, or whatever. We look at that happens to us and think, oh, well, that's not happening to them over there. So realize you can't compare your behind the scenes to somebody else's highlight reel. So for me, speaking and just getting in the reps, getting out there, started speaking anywhere I could, churches, doing workshops, that really built the practice to start. And then from there, it went in building a personal brand, which we can dive in deep into that. That's something I'm passionate about. But building the personal brand really allowed me to scale. And then to the point, people are afraid to build a personal brand because people are going to want to come see me in the clinic. Well, that's not what happened. The more my personal brand grew, the more people wanted to go to the clinic just to support me because they liked what I do, but they didn't have to see me. And that's when the vision could really scale.
Yeah, I've given a handful of talks on personal branding myself, and so I have a very biased opinion on this topic. And so I'm glad you helped me with this very convenient segue into exactly where I wanted to go with this conversation, because you've done a phenomenal job with this. I mean, you've probably talked to thousands of business owners and other chiropractic coaches and things of that nature. And obviously you have 2 TED Talks and you do a lot of speaking and podcasting. And so as somebody who's obviously very in the world of personal branding, I guess where I'd like to start is for the listener. Let's assume they're not really fully bought into this. Maybe they don't even think that a personal brand is that important, or maybe they're the type of person that's saying to themselves like, "Oh, I just want to keep the business first," or "I would like to stay behind the brand," or "I don't want to be the guru" is a common one. Let's start there. Like why would somebody even want a personal brand? Why is that even relevant? Why is that even important? And maybe we could tie into the fact of like, what did your life look like prior to having one versus after having one, I guess you could say.
Well, if you're a chiropractor, listen up, because this should help you at least get out of your mind that you don't need a personal brand. Because a few years back, there was a study done called Trends in Personal Branding. There was all kinds of different research on building a personal brand. But one of the ones that really stuck out to me, they surveyed people all over the country and they say, what are the top businesses and professions that do you want to have a personal brand? And the number one profession that people wanted a personal brand was their doctor. They want to know who they're going to see. And you think about it in your clinic, when you have a new patient, the more know, like, and trust you can build before they come in and before you have to present a plan to them, the more they're bought in, the more they're going to sign up for your care. So, I think it was, I can't remember the numbers now. I think it was 76% of people are more likely to buy from you if you have a personal brand. So why? Because that's why they're looking at Google reviews. We all know how important Google reviews are, but what if they get to know you as a person? And the cool thing is, a lot of times they want to know, like, just share the fun stuff in your life. They love that me and my wife travel and we just have a great relationships and we go on date nights. It doesn't all have to be on the hook, the story, and the close. What's my CTA to get you to come into the clinic? No, it's just sharing the stuff that's real in your life and let people get to know you and then talk about your clinic and what you do and all the things. And they're like, oh, I really like this person first. And I have this going on, I think they can help me with. Boom, that's the place I'm going to go to.
I heard recently that also too, for anybody listening, that when it comes to the branding and the content creation, especially from a social media standpoint, is that all roads lead to like in-house, I guess you could say, is what I was told. And this was told to me by a I'm talking like billionaire, successful content creator type person. And the reason I say that is because as somebody who does a lot of marketing for chiropractors, and I check out a lot of social media pages and websites and things of that nature, and I can tell you the vast majority of it is Canva stock photos that are the grossest, driest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And if that's you, I apologize for what I'm saying right now, but hopefully this is a nice, kind kick in the teeth to be like, that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about personal branding. So I'd like to dive in a little bit more of like, what is personal branding then? And what exactly is it, I guess?
And that's so true. People listening right now, go look at your page, because a lot of times it is that stock, just cheesy. Everybody looks the same. And as you know, I mean, your business pages, your Facebook business page doesn't get much traction. Like Facebook wants you to pay to get in front of people. And a mentor of mine told me a long time ago, he's like, your personal Facebook page, you can get 5,000 friends. Those are 5,000 potential customers. So don't be afraid to be friends with people in your community, because those are people that need your care. So become friends with them and let them into your life. A lot of people are like, no, I don't want people to know my life. No, you want to grow your business? Let people know your life, because they want to get to know you. People can't buy from you if they don't know who you are, what you do, or how you can even help them. So leverage that. But here's a cool thing too. If you're like, you don't want to, like, on your personal page, well, I don't want to talk about my business or whatever. Here's how my personal brand even started. I didn't even talk about my practice at all. Like I said, I had my near-death accident. I just was like, well, what am I passionate about? Mindset, business, personal development. That's what I talked about. I was like, I want to take stuff that helped me become successful and just put that out there for other people. But when people in the community started seeing me and I started interviewing people, I remember one time early on when I was starting my brand, my wife and I went out to dinner, and they were having a chamber after hours at that restaurant. And a lot of people at the local chamber came up to me like, "Oh man, I've been watching your content. It's amazing. And you interviewed so and so." And here's another one to that too. I was like, they've never liked anything. They don't comment. They don't engage, but they're listening. So people are listening. And a lot of those people over the years, like the brand just kept growing, and those people come to our clinic. Not because I gave a call to action of like, you need to come to Music City Health Center. No, they just saw me over and over, and they're like, man, he's doing something nobody else is doing. When I think of a chiropractor, that's who I want to go to.
I'm really glad you brought up the point about the your lack of engagement, because I think only other people that have created a lot of content understand maybe what we're talking about. Because for the amount of content that I put on the internet that nobody for the most part engages or likes or comments or shares or anything for that nature. And then exactly as the example that you just displayed is, I'll be out in public or I'll run into somebody or I'll get in a call with somebody and they'll say things as you uttered. "Man, I love your content. I've been watching you for a long time. It's really cool, this trip you went on," or "I love all the stuff you post about your fiance." And my first response every time this happens is, "Next time, if you could like give it a like, that'd be awesome." Like
I've said that to some people too. Yeah, it's like, because it does help us. Like if you're listening to this, if you're watching a piece of our content, give it a like because it helps. It helps share more people, because that's why we're in doing this. The content thing is not, hey, what can we get out of it? It's, man, we want to put out stuff that helps people. At the end of the day, how can we serve? How can we help people? And then when people interact and engage, it just helps to show to more people.
It's just so funny. I don't know the exact statistics. The one I do know, I think I have a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn. I'm disgustingly active on that platform, but I think it's like less than a percentage of people on that platform actually engage at all. Like they're on there. There's like, I think there's billions of users. I don't know. There's a ton of users on that platform, but it's like less than a percent actually engage. And so it's hilarious. But
I had a friend of mine, we were on a group call with some friends, and this one friend was like, "Man, have you seen the content he's putting out lately?" And it really shocked me because that guy, he never posts anything. So he's not even active himself, and he definitely hasn't liked anything. So I'm like, how's he even seeing my stuff? But people are, they're seeing it. And I think that's one of the biggest objections from people is, why am I going to put time into doing this because nobody's going to watch? And this really shifted my perspective. A few years ago, I spoke at an event. I met this guy. He had me on his podcast. A lot of people don't know what it means. I know you do with podcast numbers, but I think at this point he gets over 100,000 downloads a month. So he's had over 10 million downloads of his podcast over the years. But he told me a story. He said it's his first 9 months, he would get 50 listens a month. Not 50,000, not 150 total. And he was like, that's probably my family and friends. So it kept going for 9 months. It was not growing. And he was like, why am I doing this? Should I just quit? And he said 9 months in, still 50 a month. He said, I got an email from a guy in Japan who said, because of your podcast, I didn't take my own life. So he was like, in that moment, I decided, I don't care if it's 50 or 50,000. I'm just going to show up for that one person, because you never know who's listening. Same thing in your community. There's that one person on the other end who needs to hear your message. And a couple quotes that I shared from my TED Talk I got from a mentor of mine, Rory Vaden. He talks about, you are perfectly positioned to serve the person you once were. So an easy way to start putting out content, you're perfectly positioned to serve the person you once were. What did you go through in life? What lessons have you learned? What obstacles have you overcome? There's other people going through that stuff that want to know how you got there. So just share your story, share the lessons you learned, share what you learned along the way that could help them. That's an easy way just to start putting content out there. And again, you don't have to be the person is like, I'm just going to close people into my clinic. No, just show them your heart. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what I care about. If you like to fish, if you do different things, like whatever you do, like just show people who you are. You'll start to build that know, like, and trust. And then they can see, oh, and he's also got this awesome clinic. I need to go check that out.
Yeah, I would say the world's biggest shortcut when it comes to content creation for me has been to just document. Is that I think too often we try to create something and we try to portray something and we try to put out all these promises of the things we're going to do and how amazing we are. And in reality is, I can tell you without question, is like the best content that I've ever created, both from a personal fulfillment standpoint, from a value standpoint, from an engagement standpoint, is literally just me showing what I'm doing day to day. Like I was on a trip recently to Orlando for a conference where I met you. And one of the things that I did when I was out there is I took a car and I went driving around. I did some like quote unquote like door knocking at some local chiropractic clinics just to like meet some local doctors. And I stood out front of one of the clinics and I took a selfie and I posted on LinkedIn. And I was basically just like, hey, out here doing some door knocking, meeting some local doctors, and people loved it. Like it was literally just me showing what I was up to and just kind of documenting the journey. I didn't necessarily create anything. It was just like, here's me in action. I've done photos all the time where I'm just like sitting in a coffee shop working with my nitro cold brew and like working on a project with it's like the screen in the background. And people love that. They just want to see what you're up to. They just kind of want to follow your journey. So don't feel like, for anyone listening, like you don't need to quote unquote create something. You just document what you're up to and kind of tell people and bring people along for the ride, because that's really what they want.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I heard that from Gary Vee years ago. Document, don't create. And just document what's going on. It's exactly what I did. And I think an easy one for the chiropractors listening, because a lot of times chiropractors, we live a healthier lifestyle. So it is, hey, I drink this instead of that, or I eat this instead of that. Showing that type of stuff that you're doing, people love that. And one of my mentors years ago, he talked about, he was like, I don't know if I'm going to start sharing stories, because like, who wants to see what I eat or what I do, how I work out, all these things. But then he's like, he had a mindset shift and he was like, but if I could actually follow the rock around and the rock is telling me this is how I work out, this is what I eat, like I would sit there and watch that all day. He's like, there's people on the other side of their phones that are wanting to know what you eat. They're wanting to know what your routines and your habits are. So you weave in those healthy things, and then also how to optimize their nervous system and the power of adjustments. You start to put all of this in, and man, you can start building a loyal tribe of like, you are the expert teaching me better habits, how to prepare for sleep, morning routines, different things that if you already do that, just share it with people. And people are like, man, I want more of this. Show me more. And man, it could just take off. And I did the same thing. Just document, don't create. I'm already doing a morning routine. Let me just share it with other people.
I've also found that in a world where everything can be AI generated and templated, and you can do Canva and you can find the answers to any question that you could ever hope to want to discover for all of mankind based on how much search tools we have at this point, that really it's the ultimate differentiator is what I found, is the ability to show real world things and to more or less tie in and weave what you're up to in the story, and also what your practice is up to, right? Like you nailed it in terms of what's going on in the clinic, or how do you start your guys' day at the clinic, or how do you greet somebody when they come into the clinic, is that I have found that like that is now really the only, if not ultimate differentiator in today's marketplace, because any doctor across the country can tell you the latest and greatest on the supplement or the food health thing or the exercise or the stretch. It's like cool, like not that unique, but what's unique is like your brand, your personality, your stories, the things you experience, the places you go, the patients you interact with, is like, that's how you're going to differentiate yourself in the market, and also to build hopefully a more successful practice.
Absolutely. And that's where it comes down to your uniqueness and just finding that. There's a quote, Larry Winget, old school marketer. He had a quote I think it was around branding, but he's like, you got to find your uniqueness and exploit it in the service of others. Find your uniqueness and exploit it in the service of others, because there's only one you. And because I got into the personal development space, and one of the limiting beliefs early on is like, why would somebody come to my workshop or do this if they can go to Tony Robbins, or they can go to all these other people that are big names? And what I found is people don't want that, because they don't have access to Tony Robbins. They can listen to him, but they can't have him as a coach unless they pay him over $1 million a year. They can't do that, but they can hire me. So they looked up to me the same way I was looking up to Tony Robbins and all these other people. So, but it started with me just showing this is who I am. This is my uniqueness. It's things I'm passionate about. Look at the stuff that you read and study and the habits, the healthy stuff that you do. Just share that with people.
I'm curious so now that I feel like established the fact that personal branding is super powerful. It's super important in today's world, especially somebody that wants to continue to grow their practice. You've done a really good job with this, obviously, as you've continued to build it. But I will say is like, I think that there's maybe a couple things that we should tease out here, in the sense of, I also think that it's a long play. because I think that there's a huge degree of, I don't want to give anybody the impression that if they just go start creating content, that in a couple months, all of a sudden they're going to have a flood of new patients and they're going to have this amazing practice and this incredible brand in their local city. I've always looked at it as more or less like a hybrid approach of, yes, like create content, build the brand, business, personal, whatever you want to call it. But also there has to be some degree of like knowing how to continue to get people in the door, how to get engaged with the community, how to do marketing and sales and ads or whatever you're into. So I just wanted to tease that out in the sense of like, I think it's important also to remember is like, this is how you're setting yourself up for like long-term success per se. And that there's really not a quick fix to this, what we're talking about. I don't know if you agree or disagree.
Yeah,
But
I think you have to be in it for the long haul. Kind of like my buddy who 9 months, no traction, and then gets the email from that guy that he didn't take his own life. Like he didn't even know that guy was listening, but people are listening. So it's keeping that in mind of, hey, I'm building something. I'm building a foundation. And the cool thing about social media is you can put stuff out now that somebody finds you next year and they go back and start binge watching your videos. Like they're there for life. That's the cool thing. But then I think the mindsets that I started with, because a lot of people are like, well, why was it successful for you? And I think one of the biggest reasons, because it was successful in multiple ways. Yes, it grew the clinic. People came in there, but it also led to me leading mastermind retreats and coaching and speaking all over. But it came because I didn't start this to build that. That's not why I did it. I truly had the heart to serve people. And I did this the same way I built multiple businesses. Two things. Jesus didn't come to be served. He came to serve. So I was like, I'm just going to show up with a heart of service. And then the second one was a Zig Ziglar quote. You can get anything in life that you want if you help enough other people get what they want. Again, heart of service. So I just showed up. I'm going to serve. I'm going to give. I'm going to give everything that I got to help people. And because I did that, that's why it grew. So I think keeping in mind, it's not, I'm going to post this video. What am I going to get from that? It's no. I'm going to give value, give value, give value. And back to Gary Vee, he wrote a book, Jab, Jab, Right Hook. Like a lot of people are just out there with marketing, just right hooking people, trying to get them in right now. It's like, no, you serve, serve, serve first. Then you can actually ask for, hey, come do business with me. But it is the long term. It's building that mindset of the stuff I'm putting out today is going to lead to building a brand tomorrow. Not, hey, post today. How many likes did I get? How many people saw this? Not what it's about. And I think the mindset too of remembering people are watching. You don't know it, but they're watching. And here's a creepy one. A few years ago, I was in a coffee shop and a guy came up to me like, hey, Justin, how are you? No idea who he was. And I was like, racking my brain. I was like, have I met this guy in the community before? What's going on? And then it got even weirder. He was like, how was your trip to Florida? And then it dawned on me, he had been watching my stories and all the stuff that I was posting. So he thought he knew me. And I was like, I have no idea who this guy is. And now I've gotten to know him since then. But at first it was like, he just thought he knew me just by following me around on social media. And yeah, it's just cool. It happened this morning in the clinic. I was in the clinic this morning working with our associate doc, and a patient was in there and I introduced myself. And the associate was like, oh, I didn't know you guys didn't know each other. She's like, yeah, I know he's busy, but I've been following him on social media for a while, so I feel like I know him. And it's like, that's just how people are. They feel like they know you because they're watching. Even if they don't engage, they're not commenting, they're there.
yeah, I don't know how you attack this now, but I've learned to just kind of own it. Because I get the same thing, right? It's like somebody will be like, hey, Corey, or like, how's it going, man? And like, I generally, a lot of times I have no idea who they are, which is fine. I think it's great, honestly. It's like, I think it's a privilege to be in that position where like somebody knows you and you don't know them. I think like that's a pretty incredible thing about today's world, to be honest. And I've learned to just like own it and be like, oh, hey, like, how's it going? And like, remind me, like, where do I know you? And they're oftentimes like, oh, you don't, I just follow you. And it's like, oh, cool. Like, thanks for doing that. I've learned to just like own it. Cause I remember the first couple of times that happened to me, I like had the similar thing where I was like, this is weird. This is awkward. And now it's like, man, it's actually kind of a privilege that we live in a world where we have this kind of leverage where you can do things like we're doing here today. And then people get to know you and they like you and they trust you and they want to work with you. And you build this like external community that you never knew you really had. And yeah, it's
that's just another reminder, because same thing. Now it's just the reminder that, hey, they're listening. Keep putting it out there. They're listening. And that's kind of the mantra now. It's like, yep, keep putting it out there. Somebody's listening.
What's the advice you would give to somebody then if they were just getting started on this journey then, right? Like let's say maybe they're a practitioner and they've been doing a practice for a while and they've built maybe a relatively successful practice up to this point, but they've really never done any sort of the personal branding, content creation. They've always relied on word of mouth and referrals, and maybe they've had other team members that have done most of the social media things. What would maybe like be a good starting step for them, or what advice would you give them to just like get started on building that personal brand?
Yeah, I'd say it goes back to, again, your uniqueness. Just show stuff about you that you're passionate about. And it may be, hey, the way you eat or the way you don't eat certain things. You've switched, instead of diet soda, I drink this. Like showing stuff like that that's just real, that, like we talked about, you're just documenting, you're not creating. You're not having to think of content. What content can I put out to get this response? No, that's not what it's about. What are the stuff I'm already doing that I can just document? And then a big objection, well, I don't have the cameras or the lighting or all the stuff. Because if they're watching us on video, we both have a cool setup. You don't need that. So one of the first things I tell people to do is just start talking to your phone. Just take your phone out and just start talking. And I've ran multiple mastermind groups where I was teaching people to start do content. And the first thing I do is, like, for 30 days, you're going to every single day shoot a video. You're not even going to post it. I just want you to talk to the camera and get comfortable doing it. And I was like, for some of you, it may be day 28, it may be 10 days in, it may be 3 days in, but you're going to be like, man, that was actually good. I should post that. So just start talking to your camera every single day and just getting comfortable doing it. And the more you do it, you're going to be like, oh, I'm actually getting good at it. I'm just going to post this. And I think for me, going back now, I just ripped the Band-Aid off. I went live from like day one with people, and I was like, there is no questioning, am I going to post this or not post this? I'm like, I'm just going to put myself out there. I still had the same fears, doubts, concerns that everybody has. Oh, what if I mess up? What if I didn't give myself the option. I was just like, I'm just going to go for it. So I think finding what you're passionate about, the things that you can share that are about you, that just let people into your life, but then just start talking to the camera, get comfortable with it, and just put it out there.
Yeah, I can safely say there's, like everything in life, there's a learning curve, right? Like the first time you ever gave an adjustment or the first time you ever gave a public talk is like, there's always a big learning curve to it. And this is just another example of that, because I can very, very vividly remember the first ever podcast episode I did. I think it was probably over 3 years ago now. And I was sitting out on the deck and I was holding a microphone and I was talking into a GoPro camera and I was talking kind of monotone and I didn't really know what I was going to say and I stuttered a lot, and it's like there's a massive learning curve to it. And then fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, I went to Texpo, which was the Texas Chiropractic Association, and there was ironically a guy there who is like a professional personal brander type guy, and he's worked for some of the biggest companies in the world. And he was talking to a bunch of chiropractors and talking about exactly what we're talking about here today in terms of the importance of personal branding. And after his talk, I like went up to him, put the camera on record, and we record a few seconds of us just like talking together at the conference. If I would have tried to do that 3 years ago, it would have been so awkward, so uncomfortable.
You've got to put in the reps, and that's where it comes from. Just get yourself used to just talking, because I've seen a lot of chiropractors do this. Like a lot of people I could talk to even on Zoom, and they're like personable and they're great, and I tell them to shoot a video. Hi, I'm Dr. So-and-so. Do you have back pain? And it's like the weirdest thing ever just by their phone recording them. So just get comfortable talking to your phone. And a big key too is talk to one person. You're not talking to everybody, even if you're talking and you're going live and, hey, everybody, no. Hey, thank you for being here. You're talking to one person, because there's one person on their phone, they think they're talking to you. You just do that. You're not talking to some big audience. You're talking to one person right here in front of you, and you just act like you're having a conversation with them. And the more you do that, put in the reps, you're going to get comfortable doing it.
So I have one last question for you. So let's say we're talking to a chiropractor who feels just like super stuck in their business, and let's say they're doing successful. They're for sure over 6 figures, maybe even 7 figures. And, but they realize that they need to make this like mindset shift to get themselves unstuck in order to continue to grow their practice. I'm curious, for maybe you had a personal experience with this, or maybe somebody you've worked with has had experience with this, of like what it feels like to be stuck in your practice and not being able to get to the next level. And as somebody who I know is very big on mindset, hence the name of your podcast show, I'm curious as to like, what is the mindset shift that you need to make, or like maybe how can they do it, or what's the common pitfalls you see these doctors deal with, and how do they get past that?
I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier, having the vision and then figuring out, okay, who do I need to become? And that will start to show the blind spots. Like, where am I lacking? And then it's hiring a coach. I've hired coaches in a lot of areas of life, and I like to call it writing a check to go faster, because it is, okay, if this, and that's like the Remarkable Practice is a great coaching group, or it's like, I suck at marketing. Maybe I need to reach out to Corey and he needs to help me with this. But you don't have to do it alone. I think that's the biggest thing, is the people like, I suck at this. I'm just never going to be good. So I'm just going to have to be stuck here. No, if I suck at this, I can hire somebody to get me out of this rut to get to a next level. And you know what? When I do that, it expands the awareness of my own mindset. So I actually become differently. Corey can show me some different things to do that actually help me become more comfortable in shooting great content and putting stuff out there. Or maybe it's a system of procedures thing. This coaching group over here can teach me this, things that I don't know all of it. So one, don't think you have all the answers. I definitely don't. If I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room. I'm always trying to put myself around people that are doing bigger things, thinking bigger, learning from what they're doing, and constantly tweaking. Because if you're not growing, you're dying. So we got to be looking forward to, okay, if I want to go from here to here, that's my goal. I know who I need to become, the person that can do this, but where am I lacking? Whether for me early on, I need to learn how to speak. I needed to learn better systems, better procedures, better marketing. So who can I hire to get me there faster? I think that's the ultimate answer to the question, is hire a coach that can help you get unstuck.
I heard recently Benjamin Hardy, I believe it is. Do you follow him at all?
Oh yeah, I got two of his books right here. Yeah.
Who Not How?
Who Not How, and then 10x is easier than 2x.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, those were such mind-shifting books, I would say, or just philosophies. Even if like somebody didn't want to necessarily read the books, just adopting those philosophies were very, very mind-shifting for me. But I feel like that's a lot of what you're talking about, is like, it makes me think of the who, not how, is that for sure, especially as business owners, is that our tendency is to believe that we need to do everything. And I think that there is a degree of like, yeah, you should be damn good at whatever it is you do, but definitely not everything. And that's totally okay. And being able to let that go is super important. But.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the whole premise of the who, not how. If you don't want to read the book, it's just, who do I need to get into my life to help me achieve this vision? Not how am I going to achieve this vision? Who do I need around me that can help me? Like even for us in the clinic, it used to be me and my wife doing everything. The marketing, obviously the patient care, communication, day ones, day twos, marketing, all the things. But then it became, no, who can help take all this stuff off our plates so we can stay in our own zone of genius? And that's what it's all about.
Justin, I look forward to celebrating a million views with you on your TED Talk. I'll be sure to send that giant donut your way when that day comes. But in the meantime, maybe we can help that happen. So obviously I'll put the link to those in the show notes, but where would be the best place to connect with you maybe outside of that? Is there a social platform you're most active on, or where can people find you?
Yeah, Instagram's probably the easiest, at Dr. Justin Moseley. Put content out there. And then, if you just go to YouTube and type in Justin Moseley TED Talk, you can find my TED Talk there. It's on how I overcame my fear of public speaking. So if you've ever had that fear, I mean, there's actually a chiropractic speaking coach that's used my video for his clients to help them. So that was kind of cool. I was on his podcast and he's like, I'm actually using that to help teach my clients. So that was kind of cool too. So I think everybody needs to speak and speak more. And the ultimate theme of my talk too was, everybody's got a message to share. And I think that comes back to the personal branding conversation we had, is you have a message to share. The world is waiting to hear your message. So that's kind of the theme of my TED Talk. So hopefully you go watch that. Should be at 1 million views here soon. I'm excited about it. But at Dr. Justin Moseley on Instagram or drjustinmoseley.com.